A wise man told me once, if you're not finding the answers you're looking for, maybe you need to ask better questions. For years, we have watched Dr. Girard working out, showing off his muscles, in an attempt to inspire others. Now I want to share with you the why, my life of resiliency, and how, even up until this day, it saved my life. Let me take you back a little bit. I was a young child. My dad left when I was 14. My mother was very sick, and eventually she ended up taking her own life by jumping over a bridge. I felt it was the worst thing in my life that ever could happen. I felt like my life was over. But I had to decide, what do I do? Do I quit? Do I give up? Do I suffer the same fate as my mother? Or do I struggle and go on? This is where resiliency became a big factor. I heard a statement once, faking being well. It made a lot of sense, because I spent my life faking being well. Joining the army, going to school, accumulating every degree, every certificate, everything possible. I realized I was running from myself. The more I learned, the more I lectured, the more I wrote, the more I taught, the more missionary work I did, the more TV appearances, the more interacting with children in third world countries. I realized I was only running from my own problems. I learned success was my drug. The more I did, the more I felt good about myself. But the problem is, as soon as I was done, I came back and I was still there. Diagnosis. So one day I was driving and I looked over my right shoulder and I saw two cars. I was in school then, so I asked some of the nursing students what they thought of that. I said, it's probably just nothing, right? They said, no, with fear in their eyes, it doesn't sound like nothing. You should get that checked out. And then it began. So there I was. It was about 2 a.m. I was in the emergency room. I was there to get checked out, see why I had double vision. After numerous tests, blood tests, x-rays, vision tests, this doctor, this nurse, a doctor came up to me and said, do you have a history of diabetes in your family? And I thought to myself, I said, I don't think so. He said, because we think you have multiple sclerosis. I said, multiple sclerosis? This must be a mistake. He goes, we want you to get an MRI with your neurologist. I said, I don't have a neurologist. I don't even have a doctor. I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of an MRI, but it's not fun. You go into a room and they make sure you don't have any metal on you. You don't have any watches, rings, necklaces. They make sure you hadn't worked with metal in your life because they said that the metal will be pulled out by the machine. So then there you are, lying on a table, and they slide you in this tube. And it begins to sound like there's a bunch of monkeys on the other side of the wall, banging on pots and pans. It's scary, yep. Because then you realize you have something really wrong. So there I entered the kind of musty smell of an old doctor's office to find out the results of my MRI. Also to find out why my vision was impaired and I was having numbness in my right leg. The doctor, as a matter of fact, nonchalantly told me, "Your results from your MRI are consistent with the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis." And then they proceeded to start an IV in my arm of something I'd become very familiar with, Solumedrol. It's that familiar, soon to be familiar, metallic taste entered my mouth. Tears began to well up in my eyes as I sat there alone as the IV dripped. I've never had anything like this before. Thoughts of my future crystallized and fractalized. So I was given the choice of 3 different medications. They were all supposed to slow down the course of multiple sclerosis. None of them actually claimed to be a cure, but they were all excited. They had these wonderful brochures with these pictures of happy people. So I was given the choice of 3 different medications. Back then there were only 3. Beta-seron, copaxone, or beta-interferon, in the name of Avonex. I chose Avonex, as it was only once a week injection, and I thought that that had some benefit. So after a quick class, I learned to put this sharp metal needle through my skin. Something I would learn to do and have to do hundreds of times. I injected myself. The first injection I'll never forget. Within about an hour, maybe 2, it felt as if I had pneumonia, the flu, and strep throat all at once. I was shaking, neither hot nor cold. Terrified. I spoke with a nurse. She said, "Oh, that's normal. Just take a couple Advil. You know what, better yet, you should take it before bed so you won't feel sick during the day when you're at school." Reality continued to sink in. So I continued the injections once a week. I would take the Advil and the injection before bed, but I would wake up in the morning still feeling ill, still feeling groggy, still feeling flu-like symptoms. Flu-like symptoms really mean you feel like crap, but you have to go anyways. So there I went off to school. And it was generally about a day or 2, thinking that I was doing the best thing possible for this disease. I was fighting this disease. But was I really fighting the disease by taking a medication? So I began to research And once I cut through all the pharmaceutical companies' propaganda with smiling faces and how the disease has been arrested or decreased, I began to research and find out there's more to this picture. These drugs may not work the way I was told they would. These drugs are responsible in some cases for people's deaths. These drugs were not curing anybody. These drugs at best had a 30% chance of reduction in relapses. But I learned that that doesn't really do anything for the end point. If you're going to become disabled, you're going to become disabled whether or not you've taken the drug or not. That's back in those days. I heard a neurologist from France on YouTube speak about these drugs. And he was screaming at how ridiculous they were. They were giving promises of false hope. Again, tears coming out of my eyes. Because not only did I go through the pain of the injections for 2 to 3 days once a week, but thousands of dollars in copay. I became sad, but angry. Could there be a conspiracy? Could these companies be that sinister? Could my doctor know about this? I was losing weight. I was down to 135 pounds. When I went in the Army, I was about 175 pounds. Now I was about 135 pounds, and I could not gain any weight. I couldn't keep any weight on. I continue to get numbness. I continue to have double vision. I continue to have numbness in my hands. I started to learn that these drugs were not doing what I thought they were going to do. It was sobering. Despair sets in. What am I going to do? I'm in school. I got student loans. I have a girlfriend that I would like to get married someday. Who would want to marry somebody that has multiple sclerosis? Who would want to take the chance to marry somebody that's going to become disabled in a large percentage of the cases? Who would do such a thing? I asked the nurse that very question. I said, I can't get married. I have multiple sclerosis. She said, there's a lot of guys out there with multiple sclerosis that are jerks. Don't be a jerk. So I asked her, what should I expect with multiple sclerosis? Oh, don't worry about it. It's easy. Every time you have an exacerbation, you bend over. And when it's over, you sit up a little bit. But next time you go down a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. Well, that wasn't making me feel any better. Until what? Until you go to the floor. I started reading about Roy Swank and the Swank diet. And he seemed to be onto something. He was all about eliminating processed foods, eliminating saturated fats. There was another doctor by Dr. McDougall that was talking about processed foods, dairy, gluten. All these things were very foreign to me. I always thought I ate well. I was in the military for quite a long time, and now I was in medical school. I thought I knew what there is to know about nutrition. I thought I knew what there is to know about nutrition. I realized how very little I knew. So I began to embrace the swank protocol, the swank diet. But it was all based on the avoidance of saturated fat and eating unlimited amounts of carbs. His diet's changed quite a bit since then. But I continued to lose weight. I switched over to Copaxone now because I figured, well, beta interferon wasn't working real well. Let's try Copaxone. I continued to lose weight. I was down to 135 pounds. I was beginning to think, this may be the end. There were no solutions from the doctors. When I asked them about diet and exercise, they told me there's no evidence that diet or exercise has any effect on multiple sclerosis. That I better just rest, take it easy, and avoid stress. How was I going to avoid stress? How was I going to take it easy? I was always very active, and I found the more I took it easy, the more I rest, the less I could do, the more my body continued to fatigue, continued to decay, continued to be less useful. I tried nearly anything that I could get my hands on. I was doing research at the time on diabetes and autoimmunity. And I was studying the idea of oral tolerance. And it had been used quite often, something called hair of the dog as an example, in which it gives somebody exposure to, let's say, an allergen like dog hair, orally or by injection, and over time, you would develop a tolerance, and so you wouldn't react as much to the allergen, in this case, dog hair. So I thought to myself, well, myelin perhaps isn't also an allergen like dog hair. So I convinced a slaughterhouse to give me a cow's head because I was doing research. So they gave that to me, and I went home and I proceeded to open the cow's brain, open the skull, which, by the way, is extremely hard. I don't recommend it. And I dissected the white matter from the gray matter because I was in medical school. I had an idea. And I pasteurized it and put it in capsules. And I proceeded to take that every day. It obviously didn't work. I considered bee stings as a bee sting therapy. That was very popular then. The bee stings were to I tried nearly every supplement. I tried acupuncture. I've tried going to healers. One gentleman, a friend of mine, who did most of his study in Korea, South Korea, in the mountains, and he would use this tactile type therapy. But it really wasn't tactile therapy. He would just utterly push hard objects into my skin to break up fascia. I would have incredible bruising. It was incredibly painful, but I figured this is what I have to do. The money I spent on supplements, the money I spent on heal yourself tricks and hacks. Nothing would work. I heard about a doctor, Dr. Terry Walls, in her work with multiple sclerosis. Her first book, Minding My Mitochondria, was very interesting, but it was difficult to get through, even for a medical student. So I kind of put that on the shelf for a while, and I pondered it. But it wasn't until her next book came out, The Walls Protocol, in which, when it came out the day it came out, I got it as an ebook on Kindle because I couldn't wait for the hard copy. I read the protocol from front to cover in one day. Through my training, I knew she was on to something. I had read numerous medical journal, medical books, going all the way back to Charcot when they first discovered multiple sclerosis. They basically had no idea, and still basically, in my opinion, have no idea, and how to change the trajectory of the disease. Because we all know now there's no cure. So I embraced the protocol. I was having difficulty speaking. I could barely sit up straight. I could not roll over in bed. I was becoming incontinent. I don't do things half-fast. So I dove right in to level 3. Walls Paleo Plus. I eliminated all carbs. I eliminated all processed foods. I eliminated sugar. I eliminated gluten. My speech started coming back. I could lecture again. I could do mission work again. Strength was returning back to my legs, and my arms, and my voice. My brain fog began to lift over months, not days, months. I eliminated the idea that cholesterol was bad and that all fats were evil. I began to embrace vegetables and the idea of grass-fed versus conventional meats. I began to realize how we depleted our soils so much of minerals, vitamins, nutrients. Therefore, our plant materials, our meats, are only a shadow of what they were. I looked around. Obesity was growing at an obscene rate. I didn't understand. I also began to realize, although starting the protocol had some incredible, significant, rapid changes, the path to recovery is not linear. The path to recovery is not just up, 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 and away. It's up and down and up and down. So about 3 months ago, I had a setback. All of a sudden my stomach started to go off. and my symptoms started to return pretty rapidly. I sought more changes, more dietary changes, more physical changes. I learned that recovery is not just about food. I've always said helplessness leads to hopelessness. Therefore, at this point in my journey, I've learned a few things. By me taking an active role in my recovery, I became less helpless and more hopeful. That hopefulness leads to a substantial amount of recovery. It gives you empowerment. It gives you an idea that you have some control. You can do something to change the course of the disease. Right down to simple things like writing or coloring. But remember, there will be setbacks. No question. This is what I've learned. Out of the blue came a setback. I had difficulty standing. I have difficulty walking. I had difficulty eating, moving. But what do? Do you give up? No. You continue to fight, because what other choice do you have? So you start over to a point. You take a few steps forward, and maybe you take one or two back. That's okay. But what's not okay is giving up. It's not an option. It is not an option. I learned that in the military, and I've learned that with multiple sclerosis. Not only for me, but for my family and for my friends. Giving up is not an option. I've learned that my training, when you've hit a wall, when you think that you can't go any further, you've only just begun. The light is there. We look inside of our brain. We have more knowledge, more wisdom than we think. My recovery is not just about food, but it's about things like meditation. It's about things like brain-derived growth factor. It's about things like proper exercise or movement. It's about utilizing things we have like cannabis, perhaps stem cells in the future, neurotranscranial stimulation. We could talk about different types of saunas. We could talk about different kinds of medications, the usefulness, different kinds of electrical stimulation. Even what shamans talk about, we could talk about psychedelic therapy and how certain medications can actually rewire parts of our brain. What I considered voodoo medicine or woo-woo medicine was not that. Nothing has become taboo to me. My goal now is to investigate all these modalities, find out which ones are pseudoscience and which ones actually mean something. And I'd like to try to bring that to you.
There is hope until you give up. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. But sometimes you fall down. I'm not going to jump off, don't worry. But what I will do is I'm just going to lay down here. So it's okay. Just relax. Hello. So what do you do when you fall down? You get back up. Looks pretty difficult to get back up, doesn't it? Yeah. You don't know what you can achieve until you... But there are so many obstacles. So it's an opportunity. But I'm going to fail. Every time I make a mistake, it's a step closer to knowing how to get better. Hold on. Hold on. There is hope until you give up. If I try 100 times something and I give up, I'll never get up. But as long as I keep on trying, there is hope.